Hey there guys, this is just part of a fanfic that my friend Lydia and I have been working on. This is Casey. I will be narrating and voice acting for all of the male characters, and Lydia will be doing the female characters. Lydia will hardly get any time at all in this chapter, but she'll have plenty in the next one, so don't worry about that. We just hope that you guys like this. There are some slightly Christian themes just because we're both very devoted Christians, but it's not much. That'll come in later. For now, this is just starting off right after the events that took place in Starfox Assault, and I hope you enjoy it. It was a cold atmosphere. Crystal could sense the mood between her teammates was remote and distant, but she could not bring herself to blame them. They must have been exhausted. Not even a day had passed since the Aperoids had been destroyed and peace was again restored to the Lilat system. Crystal had remembered the adventure so clearly. All the details stuck out to her, perfectly carved into her mind. The thing she remembered most was seeing a familiar ship in the distance when all hope seemed lost. Then to hear Peppy's voice over the speakers, "I promise I'm really gonna retire after this." She smiled at the memory. Crystal even had a chance to visit Saria once again with Fox by her side during that mission. Of course, the land was nearly free of dinosaurs, for they had gone into hiding at the time, but she never knew how much she missed the place until they had arrived. Although the adventure was quite tiring all in all, and the Vixen could understand the moodiness of the team, something else was in the air. Finally, Crystal reluctantly hauled herself from her cozy bed and stretched her arms over her head. She glanced over at the clock on her bedside table to see that it was 1 in the afternoon.
"I guess all those days without sleep have caught up to me,"
she thought to herself. Dragging her weary feet across the floor of the hotel, Crystal opened up her suitcase, pulling out some clothes, and headed for the shower. On her way over, she felt a little tingling sensation at the back of her mind and perked up her ears as if that would help her sense more proficiently. She knew that she was picking up on some emotion from the room next to her, which was Fox's. Her heart leaped the tiniest bit as she thought of him, but it immediately slowed when the feeling that was spreading all the way from the tips of her ears to the ends of her toes was not a happy feeling. It was something heavy, like a humid cloud of mist hanging over her head. What could Fox be thinking? Crystal shook her head and pried her mind away from Fox's as she closed the bathroom door and pressed her finger over the sensor of the shower, entering the water settings on the little touchscreen. He was probably just tired, that was all. He had been through more than any of them since the beginning of the mission. He also had to think about the dinner celebration being held in his honor coming up in only a day. Crystal stripped off her pajamas, shivering slightly, and stepped into the stall, immediately feeling the stress being washed away by the waterfall-like shower head. The stall was a lot larger than she had expected, and the water was coming down in bucketfuls, warming every inch of the Vixen's body, rinsing away all the sweat, grime, and dirt that had built up over the last few days that she had had to go without bathing. It felt wonderful, and Crystal soon forgot all about the nagging feeling at the back of her head. When she had finished her shower, dried off, and changed, she was feeling more refreshed than she had in weeks. Crystal hummed to herself as she combed the snarls out of her short hair and opened the window. Sunlight streamed in and warmed her damp fur. It was a beautiful day. "Crystal, you up yet?" Crystal blinked at the sudden noise and hurried over to the door. She turned the knob, and as she had hoped, Fox McCloud stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets and a rather impartial expression on his face. Crystal sensed some angst, but she gave him a small smile.
"You must be exhausted,"
she said. Fox only shrugged. "We're having lunch down in the dining hall if you want to join us."
"I'll be down in a moment, then. Thank you."
And just like that, he left. Crystal stood motionless in the doorway for a while, watching the leader shuffle away as she was still trying to figure out what was nagging at the back of his mind. "A short stack and a side of bacon. Got that?" The waitress scribbled in her notepad and nodded at Falco, who was leaning so far back in his chair, both Peppy and Slippy were afraid he would fall backwards at any moment. "Geez, Falco," commented Slippy as he handed his menu to the waitress. "Is there anything you didn't order?" "Hey, I'm a growing boy," Falco retorted, leaning back even further in his chair and patting his stomach fondly. "Besides, I haven't eaten nothing but ramen noodles and pretzels since the mission. I want some real food." Peppy shook his head and ordered a small breakfast. "It is nice to relax once in a while, I suppose." "That is the first full night of sleep I've had for weeks," said the frog, stretching his arms over his head. "It was weird." Just then, Fox McCloud entered the room, looking rather sluggish and listless. Falco pulled out a chair for the leader and motioned him to sit down. "Morning, Sunshine," Falco said, patting Fox a little too hard on the back. "We ordered your food. Is Crystal coming or what?" Fox only nodded and took a sip of water. Falco did not seem to notice his friend's mood and began folding his straw wrapper into a paper football, which he promptly began to flick about the table. Pepe cocked his head in Fox's direction. "Sleep well?" Fox nodded again and reached into his glass to retrieve the soggy football that Falco had flicked. "Did Crystal sleep well?" Fox shrugged. "I guess so." Falco glanced up from his soggy piece of paper and gave Fox a weary look. "You guess so? What, she didn't tell you how she slept?" he asked with a touch of defiance in his voice. "Did she assume you could read her mind and figure it out on your own?" "What the heck are you talking about?" Slippy asked with a blink. Falco tossed the useless wet paper and reached across the table to steal Slippy's straw wrapper instead. "Oh, you know, she's psychic, or whatever. It's creepy." "She can't necessarily read our minds, thought for thought," said Pepe, sipping his coffee. Falco shrugged. "Yeah? So what's the point of having her on the team anyway?" Fox showed the first real signs of interest in the conversation and pricked up his ears. "What do you mean, why do we need her?" The Falcon began to fold his wrapper absent-mindedly. "We all know you want her, Fox, but..." Fox blinked and opened his mouth to deny it, but Falco cut him off. "But we've all been training since we were in diapers. She only started about a year ago and you let her on the team? Hundreds of people are more qualified and would give their left leg to join the Starfox team. She had no experience."